Hey everybody, people have asked me about how I paint my terrain up or how I create my terrain. I thought I'd do a quick little video here. This is a Dark Realms. Studios makes this particular one. They're on my mini factory. I think they have their own Patreon too. This is from basically their kind of Harry Potter line, but I thought it would work really good for my Gothic Victorian London table. I've already printed it out using gray, but then I just went in and gave it a quick spray of matte sort of dark taupe here, and I kind of sprayed the top. You can see where I've actually got some overspray, but that isn't going to matter because you're going to have soot and crap anyway. So what I'm going to do first is just sort of block in these places that would be wooden sort of window areas, and I am just using for that some model color dark green in this case. I've already painted one of these a sort of red brick color, so right now I'm going to do this one in more of a lighter shade. This is probably the smallest brush I'm going to use today, and it's still pretty big, but I'm just going to go in and I'm going to block in the window areas, and I'm not going to be overly precise because when I come back with a really big brush, I'm going to get a lot of dry brush over, not overspray, but over paint for this whole thing. So this part, you can see I'm just sort of knocking in the green wooden parts, and actually the model didn't come with windows, they were just big holes, and so I ended up making the windows in Tinkercad really quick, which is a really simple free 3D program. It's really easy to use. A lot of like schools and stuff use them to teach them kind of basic 3D modeling skills. So I am going to, I built them really quick and then used them using my other 3D printer. This actual building was printed using a Creality Ender 3, and it printed in 4 different sections if you count the roof. This particular model comes with a bunch of different, not a bunch, it comes with 3 different rooftops, so you could technically use the same model printed 3 different ways and get 3 different buildings. The storefront, of course, will be the same, but I don't plan on putting them right next to each other, so it shouldn't be real apparent when I'm doing it. But you can see I'm not really being real careful with how I'm laying it in. It's more about getting these, because I'm going to give this a quick dry brush. We're going to have some I'm going to go back and do a real quick highlight on all these, and then the whole thing's going to get some weathering. Okay, so I got my green blocked in around my windows. This is my favorite part, which is I've got this gigantic brush that I've had for, I don't know, 30, 40 years now, and I'm just going to straight up start doing some dry brushing. And so I just used a slightly lighter shade. I'm going to be doing several stages of this. I just used some plain old craft paints because they're really cheap, and this is going to be using a lot of paint. So I basically just get some paint on there, and I just lightly start dragging it across. This particular color is kind of watery, but that's not going to matter because these are bricks and they can be all slightly different colors or shades. So you'll notice I'm getting a little bit on the green. That doesn't matter because we're going to be doing the same thing with the green too. So I'm just letting the brush drag across the bricks and just catch the highlights, which is what's great about the whole dry brushing technique. This is pretty much what I do for all of my kind of big buildings. I hardly ever use a small brush at all, except for when we're talking about doing fine details on stuff. But for the most part, since we're going for quantity on this, we're really just kind of hitting big areas. I'll go back in, especially on the windows, hit them with a slightly lighter shade, just like I'm doing with this. And then I'm going to go back and do some weathering with some contrast paints, have some places where water is dripped down. So that I've already completely got the first layer down on one side. Notice I'm wearing a apron because I like to rest it on my leg while I'm doing this. Sometimes I just stand up, but since this is a big mullet, and I could have been doing this in its sections, but it's just easier when it's all whole like this to make sure I get a cohesive look while I'm dragging the brush across. So then I don't have to worry about the colors matching up. And we'll get a little bit, knocking those out. All right, it's the same verse, the same as the first. So I've gone over a little lightly, not a whole lot showing, but now I'm going to hit it with an even lighter tone again, even with just some lighter. And if it looks like it's too light right now, you got to remember that acrylics tend to dry darker, a little bit thinner paint, so it's gonna let through some of the underlying colors come through. And again, I'm being pretty laissez-faire with what I'm doing because, again, bricks are pretty, even though they're standardized, you still get some variation in the shade and everything. So I am hitting this. And the nice thing is each layer that I'm building up here is going faster and faster because I'm not worried about getting complete coverage. I'm just worried about getting it fairly even across it. And I may do another layer after I see how this dries, but for now, and you'll notice like around the building there, I got around the window there, I got some overspray as you might call, but it's not going to be that big of a deal. So I decided I'm making this decorative piece is going to be same sort of shade, but I'm going to go over the top of it with a even lighter color, so it'll be like it was maybe painted at one time, or it was actually done in cement or concrete, and it's just sort of faded out. Again, not worrying too much about if I get some stuff kind of on the green areas, because the green areas are going to get hit. See, I just made a big goof up there, but we're going to fix that in post-production basically. Oops, almost forgot that. Got the chimney up here. Notice I'm wearing a apron because I like to rest it there. So we'll come back for the next layer. All right, I think I like how the sides or the brick color really worked out, so I don't think I'm going to do a lighter version right now, but now I'm going to start on the roof. I've decided this is going to be like a slate. So again, I'm just using my gigantic brush, and I'm going real light because I kind of want the brown that I already sprayed here to do most of my work. So it's gonna be grimy anyway when I'm done with it. So And this is also going to get a second hit of dry brushing. Notice this is going really fast, and that's why I like it. And wherever I goof up, like those edges, I come back later with a smaller brush and fix all that. Again, I'm not pressing a whole lot, I'm just letting the already dark color sort of do my work, so I'm just catching the edges here. Toot, 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 toot. So, roof, already looking good with just that little bit of doing there. All right, I did the roof. I did a second little lighter bit of gray dry brushing, so it picks up the edges of the roof really well. Now I'm going in, I'm fixing up all those sort of narfs that I had when I dry brushed all this. And this is also when I can, not only is it cleaning it up, but I'm using a lighter shade that I'm also sort of just hitting those inside frames with. It gives it some depth rather than just being a flat color. And again, even though I'm being a little bit more precise on this, it's not so bad if you're a little bit messy, because what it ends up doing is it ends up making it look like the paint is chipped. It's a little bit not quite so perfect. It looks a little bit more aged, and since this is kind of going to be placed in a dubious part of town, if it looks a little bit more chewed up, then all the better. So again, I'm just sort of dragging the brush across. Sort of getting there. Cleaning up where the big brush, which I am now at the point where in this where I don't really need it anymore. Now I can use a smaller brush. However, I'm still using a fairly good sized brush, and all these brushes are ones, especially ones that I use for dry brushing, are several years old. They're a little bit chewed up. Bristles aren't quite so straight anymore, but that's precisely why I keep them around. And so I go in here, especially here where I had this nice big white pit. I'm not getting all the way to the edge, because again, we're looking for this part. I probably would normally use an even bigger brush, just because it's easier to get more coverage. But I don't want to get up, so I'm just going to make do with what I got. All right, this is probably my favorite part of the build, where we go in and start doing some weathering. So everyone's favorite, Agrass Earthshade. For this, I have this truly tragic brush that I keep around specifically to do this sort of bit with. So I'm just gonna, I've already painted the little downspouts here, a silver color, and now I'm just going in and I'm making them all look rusted and gross. And again, if I get some overspray, it just looks like the muck that's coming down the downspout has actually got sort of leaching out around it. For me, this is really where contrast shades or contrast paints sort of come into their own. It's usually mostly what I use them for a lot is specifically for this kind of stuff. A little bit for painting actual miniatures, but never without any kind of highlighting or something afterwards. So I'm using this on these pipes, and then I'm probably just add a little bit more rusted wear after this kind of dries a little bit, which you don't even have to let it completely dry. I might go back with one of the other tones that's got red in it that's more of a rusty color, and go over this, especially where the joints of the pipes meet. Then I'm gonna go down here where the stairs to the place are, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna get them kind of gross, because you know, most of the streets, despite what you see, were not necessarily cobbled. They had a lot of just mud. So this is, I mean, I'm getting the bottom of the door and stuff like that, just because I want it to look like this gets used a lot. Go along the bottom edge here of the building, a little bit more watered down, but just to give that sort of grimy feel to the place. Then, oh, I need to do the same thing. I'm gonna hit this. Oops, got some on my hands. Oh well. Kind of the top of the chimney here needs to get dirtied up from all the soot and grime from that. I'm definitely gonna hit that again with probably some Nuln oil. Now I'm gonna take a slightly thinner brush, and I'm gonna go around the edges here where the water's sort of seeped out, and I'm just gonna go add some nice drippy drips where it looks like those downspouts have not been doing their job. You can do the same thing underneath the windows too. Kind of give it, again, think about where water is going to collect and then drip down, because again, this is not going to be the most well-maintained shop around. I'm going to do the sides. I'm going to let that maybe out here on the back side too. Now, even while that's even still wet, I'm going to take a little bit of this Cenothion Camo shade, and if you've ever seen like lighter color buildings or anything like that, especially around the bases of stone and stuff, or not a well-maintained basement, you start to get some of that moldy stuff sort of leaching up. So that's what I really like this color for. Kind of add some grime, and the agrass hasn't even really dried yet, but that's the nice thing about these things, is they mix together just fine. Now my steps are still a little bit wet, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of blot the edges a little bit, just to pick up the edge of the building. Then I'm going to get out my Nolan oil here. We talked about those sooty areas on the top of the chimney. Even if it kind of grimes down a little bit around the bottom of it, kind of make it look a little, the soot and stuff has kind of come down there. And then I talked about maybe bringing in some reddish colors. Got a little bit of the Fire Slayer flesh left in there. I'm gonna go here to, notice it's still a little bit wet, but I'm gonna go in here and sort of add it where these things connect, and it'll add a little bit more rust to them, even though these probably were made out of lead, so, but it looks cool. All right, so that was about, let's put it together. Oops. That was about an hour and a half's work doing all this. Now it's not completely dry, but I'm gonna show it to you anyway. So there's our Victorian building, done mostly with dry brush, a few contrast paints. The whole thing was, like I said, about an hour and a half. I could still go back and add a little bit of stuff here and there. I'll probably put up some signage on the side, around the bottom of it, pasted up advertising and some stuff like that. But this actual STL for this building was $10, again from Dark Realms. I got it actually cheaper because they were having a sale. I think I got it for like $7.50. There's probably about another $7.50 to $10 worth of the not resin, but the printing string, the PLA that went into this. So grand total about $15. I think it looks really good compared to a similar, more expensive MDF building. One, I don't like MDF because you don't get this great texture that you get from printing it, and also you get those weird seams on the side, and I think they hold paint a lot better. So, and I think the MDF version of this would probably be more expensive. So quick little painting tutorial how I did it. Like I said, I knocked it out pretty darn quick, and I think it's gonna look great when I got about like 20 of these on the table. So hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. See you later.